Hi everyone, it's Melissa. Actually, this is Editing Melissa, just coming on to give you a proper hello because there is some weird sound issue for the first couple seconds of this video. So anyway, hi. In this video, I'm going to be talking about all of the graphic novels that I've read this month. If you didn't see my video introducing this series, I'm doing a series the last half of this year called I've Never Read, where I am picking up different book formats, genres, authors, etc. that I have never read before and giving them a try and then sharing with you what I liked or didn't like, or whether that's an author or genre or whatever that I will continue to read. And it's been so much fun. This was my first go at it. So the first one I did was graphic novels. I am so angry that I haven't picked up graphic novels before. I really enjoyed all of the books to some degree. I liked some more than others, of course, but it was just a really great reading experience. So I'm going to share with you what I read, and I've decided to do this in the order of my favorite graphic novel that I've read this past month, all the way down to my least favorite. My least favorite was still a 3 stars, so like I said, overall, a very nice experience. So my favorite graphic novel this month was Alone by Christophe Chabouté. And as the title suggests, this is about a person who is alone in a remote lighthouse. And throughout the book, you learn more about this person, why they're in the lighthouse by themselves, what they do with their copious amounts of free time. And this I chose kind of on a whim because it was so different than anything I've ever read. So at the beginning of this, I hadn't read any graphic novels, period. And this one is a graphic novel that has little to no text or dialogue because, of course, the person's alone. So it was almost entirely pictures. And I didn't really know what to think about that. And I thought, oh, that would be kind of a neat experiment. And I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did. The story was just gripping. I couldn't wait to see what happened. This read to me more like watching a short film or something. Like the way the different panels are drawn and set up was very cinematic. And I could almost see these as different shots in a film. 5 stars, loved this. Another 5-star book was The 100 Nights of Hero by Isabel Greenberg. This is a retelling, I guess, of, what's that story called? 1001 Arabian Nights. I think it's a story from there where someone is kept distracted over 100 nights. And this follows Cherry and her lover, Hero, and Cherry's husband and some other guy who are both just awful human beings make a bet where her husband thinks that she will remain faithful to him, and the other man thinks that he will be able to seduce her within 100 nights. And then Cherry's lover, Hero, hatches a plan to distract the man with 100 nights of storytelling. So the book itself, it has kind of the overarching story of Cherry and Hero and this horrible man intermixed with some of the different stories that she is telling them. And the stories actually weave together into real life in a really nice way. There are a lot of stories in here that feature sisters, and it's very woman-centric, and I loved it. So it's a book about sisterhood and female friendship and female relationship, and it's a book about storytelling, and I just gobbled this book up. It was so, so good. So now we're going to make a hard turn into something completely different, but my next favorite was Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and illustrated by Fiona Staples. And this was a weird little science fiction fantasy. I don't know what this was, but I really enjoyed it. It follows these two main characters who are from different planets, or one's from the planet and one's from the moon, but that doesn't matter. They're from separate sides of this war, and they fall in love and have a baby, and it's about them trying to escape the planet that they're on. It has a lot of really interesting side characters that start to get woven into the story, and it was all just very surreal, and but with this heart of love and family at the center of it. And it leaves on a bit of a not really cliffhanger, but sort of, which completely worked because I really want to go and pick up the next in the series to see how their story continues. After I read this, I looked up the creators and found out that Brian K. Vaughan was also worked on the series Lost, which is one of my favorite television series of all time, which was also a very weird, surreal mess of a show. And I feel like this is kind of the same thing. It's this very weird, surreal, I don't want to say mess, but I've inserted hopefully illustration somewhere so you can kind of see. I really kind of like fell into this world and would like to see where this goes from here. So my next favorite was a graphic memoir. I love memoirs, so I really wanted to read at least a couple of graphic memoirs to see how I would like memoirs in this format. And this was Marbles by Ellen Forney. And this follows her mental health journey as she is diagnosed when she's about 30 years old with bipolar disorder. This was so interesting and captivating. I loved her art style. I loved how she was able to really capture the essence of what it feels like to be manic and to be depressed. And I feel that she really was able to help you visualize what that feels like. And it was such an interesting thing to read about something so personal. I mean, that's why I love memoirs, but to read something so personal but also so disorienting, like her journey through trying to understand her own illness and what that means for her life. And she really struggles with the diagnosis and struggles with the idea of taking medications because she's a creative person. She was a comic and artist, and still is, and really worried, I think as a lot of artists do, that taking medications would dull her and that she would lose her creativity. And this, yeah, I can't say enough good things about this. I think this was completely the right way to tell her story. I think if she had written a memoir, it would have also been good, but I think her visuals, like her drawings of how she was feeling and depicting her moods and her mental state, really made the story just come to life that much more. So if you like memoirs, I think regardless of whether you have read graphic novels before, I think you would enjoy this, and I highly, highly recommend it. So my next favorite graphic novel that I read this month was Abbott by Saladin, Ahmed, illustrated by Sami, Kivela, and Jason Wordie. What did he do? I think he did the lettering maybe, or the coloring. Those two had to do something with the art, and this is the person who wrote the story. There we go. So I picked this up because I love detective stories and I like noir crime detective stories. And this had, just from the cover, kind of looked like it had that feel. It was about I knew it was about a reporter who was looking into some grisly crimes that had been happening. And they are grisly. We open where she is called as a reporter to a crime scene, and at that crime scene there is a horse head. And then later she is called, I think, to a different crime scene where there was just the lower half of the person, and that's all that's left. So these really horrific crimes have been happening, and she wants to get to the bottom of it. This is set in 1972 Detroit, and it does have that noir, like detective noir. She's not a detective, she's a reporter, but you know, she's investigating a case essentially. It does very much have that detective noir feel, but because it's set in the 70s, the aesthetic, I feel like it's more of like, if I'm going to compare this to a movie like Chinatown or something, but there's also supernatural elements to this story, and I just thought this was a lot of fun. I really liked the art style. I really liked the character of Elena Abbott. She's this no-nonsense reporter. She puts on this air of like fearlessness, and she's going to get to the bottom of this, and she's really passionate. But as you get to know her, she's very sensitive and caring on the inside, and I really think that was a nice little addition to that kind of like hard-nosed detective or hard-nosed reporter type of character, that she had something else to her personality as well. So if you like detective stories and you like supernatural stuff, then this mixes them both together, and I thought it was great. So those last few were 4 stars for me, and now we're moving into the 3-star realm. But the next graphic novel I read was Aya by Marguerite Abouet and illustrated by Clément Oubrebie. This is set during the 1970s or 80s in Côte d'Ivoire in Western Africa. And you really get a good sense, I feel, having never been to Côte d'Ivoire, I feel like this gives a real sense of that place just through how the characters talk to each other and the like the nightlife that they were partaking in or not partaking in, the dynamics between the different characters, like the girls and their friendship, and then how they relate to boys and the dynamics within their own families, I think really gave a good sense of what life was like for young people during this particular time in Côte d'Ivoire. And yeah, I enjoyed this. I think a criticism would be like, it's called Aya, but I don't feel like she was the main character at all. I know there are other books in this series, I think, so maybe she becomes more prominent in those. She has 2 really close friends in this, and I feel like we get to know them a lot more and their side stories. And I feel like Aya really didn't have a story. Like, her story was just her talking with her friends about their issues and what they were going through. I was expecting a coming of age of this person, but it was more a broad view of, being a teenager in Côte d'Ivoire during this time. One thing I loved, though, about Aya's character is she gives the best side-eye ever. I will insert some of the panels where she's giving side-eyes to men saying dumb things to her. And so I think part of me also wished that she was more prominent in the story as well. So the next I don't have a copy of because I read this through Scribed on my computer. Scribed? How do you say it? I don't know. Anyway, they had a PDF of this next graphic memoir, which is Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. And I picked this up again because it's a memoir. And also, this was on every list of like top graphic novels ever. And I don't know if this was just a case of it being overhyped. I enjoyed it. I thought it was okay. I didn't dislike my reading experience, but I wouldn't put it on a top list personally. I know there was a film adaptation, like I think it won an Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film quite a while ago. It follows Marjane's life from childhood and through like adolescence. She grew up in Iran during the Islamic Revolution back in the 70s. And what I really liked about it was I enjoyed the art style. I also thought that it was really interesting, and I really, really learned a lot about the Islamic Revolution that I wasn't aware of. And it was nice to get kind of like that insider's look of what it was like being there and being there as a child as well. I found all that stuff really fascinating. What I didn't like about it is, you know, it's a memoir, and I feel like in a memoir I have to feel strongly connected to that person. Like when I was reading Marbles, I felt strongly connected to Ellen and her experience, and she was drawing me into that story, the story of her life. And I feel like when I was reading Persepolis, I was fascinated more so as like intellectually, or it was almost like reading something academic where I was learning really interesting information about this time period in Iran, but I didn't feel connected to her. I felt like the characters, they weren't characters, they're real people, but I felt like all of the people were kind of kept at arm's length, and I didn't really get to know anyone, and so I didn't have like strong feelings in that way, which I look for in a memoir. And the last on my list, which was still a really fun graphic novel, just I don't think it was quite for me, was Lumberjanes by, I didn't write down their names, but I will insert somewhere or in the description. This I also read on Scribd, and this follows a group of girls who are at this almost like a scout type camp where they earn badges and like do outdoorsy things, but there's all this weird like supernatural crap happening. So there's like weird mythological creatures, and they keep stumbling into adventures. So it was very episodic, where each little chapter or section would follow like one little adventure that they had at this camp. So I really liked the art style. I really liked the different characters. I liked how they had different types of girls, so different ethnicities, different personalities. Like some of them were a little like quieter and meeker, and some of them were very like feminine, and some of them were more tomboyish, and some of them were more assertive, and some of them were adventurous, and some of them were very nerdy, and I really liked that mix. And there was even like a little budding romance between a couple of them. So overall, I think if I had to choose a word for this, I would call it cute. It was definitely a lot of fun. I think I would have really enjoyed this in middle school or high school. So I think it was just, I'm not the right audience for it. So those were the graphic novels that I read during the past few weeks. I really enjoyed this, as always. I hope everyone's doing well, and we will talk to you soon. Take care.